again, and welcome to our virtual and evening edition of If Cars Could Talk. We are very excited to host this program for you to enjoy, and now from the comfort of your own home. My name is Kelsey Cross, and I'm the Education Coordinator here at LeMay America's Car Museum. For upcoming If Cars Could Talk and educational programs, please be sure to visit our website and subscribe to the museum's newsletter for the most up-to-date information. So before we get started with all of the fun stuff and learn a little bit more about these two wonderful humans that we have right here, I do have a couple of quick housekeeping rules for you all. So if you have any questions at any point during the talk, be sure to type them into the Q&A box, which should be towards the bottom of your screen so we can answer them. For this presentation, though, either one of our speakers don't mind if you want to answer questions or ask your questions periodically throughout the talk. So I will monitor the Q&A box and let me know if you want your question asked now or towards the end of the presentation. Likewise, you can also use the raise your hand icon and we can call on you that way too. If you have any technical issues, please use the chat box to type those in there and I will message you and we will do our best to get those handled as quickly as possible too. As you all have probably noticed too, this presentation is being recorded. So if you have some family and friends that were unable to make it tonight, feel free to share this video with them. It will be on our website and also on our YouTube channel. And lastly, have fun. That's what we're doing. That's why we're here. So I hope you all have a wonderful time that you're here this evening. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to America's Automotive Trust's new CEO, Tabitha Hammer, and ACM's new Executive Director, Brad Phillips. I do have the PowerPoint presentation, so if both of you just want to tell me next, I will be sure to put through that as we need to when we go through. So just let me know.
Great. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. And what fun. I think we're spread clear across the country, which is kind of a fun thing to all be joined together via Zoom. My goodness, what a great thing that we have probably all been using more than we'd like to, but it certainly allows us to do fun things like this and engage no matter where we're at. So thank you all for joining. Brad, I'm going to let you make a few comments as well, and then we'll just kind of jump into introductions.
A few comments? Have you ever seen me hold myself to a few comments, Tabitha?
No, I don't. And it's one of the things I like about you.
There we go. So as I understand it, we have this forum to make some introductions to some of the folks that wanted to come on this and hear from us. But this is not going to be just the two of us droning on and on about various automotive accomplishments. This is going to be fun because it's 9 o'clock where you and I are. You're in Vermont, right? I am in Maryland. And I've been spending time in Tacoma and bouncing around. I just got back from Michigan at Concours of America, and now I'm back home. So we're kind of doing this whole, bi-coastal existence here. And I think it's happy hour. So I think if anybody out there is enjoying a nice glass of wine or something and going to use that to help enjoy the presentation, we are all for it. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
And cheers.
And cheers. There you go. Oh, I'm green screened the beer out of my hand. That's pretty good. Well, that's a way to keep that there. But look, the point of this is really fun. And to keep it straight, Tabitha is the CEO of America's Automotive Trust. And I am Brad Phillips. I am the Executive Director of LeMay America's Car Museum. These are very intertwined organizations. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we wind our way through some really fun photos and talk about how the heck did we get here? Why are these people so interested in cars? What sort of formed their mentality to where this is what they simply had to do, and why we want to talk to you guys about it. We want to listen to your questions. We want to get to know all of you as best we can, and really just use this as a fun forum to talk about our love of the automobile and where we share all these messages together. So Tabitha sent me a few pictures earlier today. As I think I counted them up, 10 pictures. So I found 10 or 11 pictures, and I put together a fun presentation, which is, again, you can't see it. So I'm using a green screen background here, and I never do that. This is from Amelia Island this year. But anyway, I think Kelsey is going to be driving the bus, and we may have we have a couple of extra windows, I think. I think we have Scott, if his video is still showing, we can move his out. So there's maybe they're a little bit bigger for everybody to see. But Kelsey's going to flip through this, and I have taken these photos and I've constructed some basic questions of what we want to do. So, and they're in no particular order, but Tabitha, do you want to tell everybody what being the CEO of America's Automotive Trust really means to you?
Sure. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with the structure of America's Automotive Trust, we established the trust back in 2016, and it is essentially the hub, if you will, of many different organizations that include LeMay, America's Car Museum, RPM Foundation, which is headquartered in Chicago, America on Wheels Museum in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And then we have other initiatives of Club Auto, powered by Hagerty, and Concord Club. We also have efforts in Detroit. So the trust is really the collaborator. We are the organizer that brings all of these entities together and sharing some back-end resources like marketing and development and all of these event planning, all of the things that each organization would have to have themselves, but may not make sense for everyone to be doing it in their own silo. And so in the car world, we want to bring everyone together to drive and to have fun and to really perpetuate car culture. And that is the trust. So in my role as CEO, I'm really just connector. I'm the conduit. I connect everyone together and be sure that all of our entities are in strategic alignment with the vision and mission. But each one has their own brand, has their own plan. And so I get to have fun in overseeing those operations as well, with people like Brad directing the LeMay Museum, and Nick Ellis, who is our executive director of our PM Foundation, which is really focused on the skilled trades. So being sure that there's a long plan and skilled group of people to work on these cars and keep them running down the road. And Linda Merkel, who is the director of America on Wheels Museum in Allentown.
So there's a lot of moving parts to this. So the trust is like this beautiful umbrella that sort of sets across all these other organizations. So it's wonderful to have the support, and been much appreciated to have you up there helping with all the organizations. And it makes all our lives easier to feel like we can kind of centralize some of these resources. So where do I come into this? Well, now I'm running the car museum, and you've got the photo there. I believe Kelsey's showing up. LeMay, America's Car Museum in scenic Tacoma, Washington. And so I manage the entity that we put together some fantastic car displays in our 165,000 square foot building. I think there are over 300 cars on display at any time. We've got fantastic exhibits on loan, great cars that we take to events, and we invite a lot of people to come see us. So that's my life right now. So I've been on board here since May 31st, right? And Tabitha, you were a few months before that, right?
Officially in this position on March 1st of this year. And then I've previously served in a variety of board positions with the trust or with our PM Foundation since 2015.
Yeah, it's fair to say that we're both familiar with the organization, and we're also very familiar with each other because we both spent about the last dozen years working together at our previous employer, Hagerty, which is a great supporter of the museum and the trust. And we're so excited about this new opportunity that we get to share with everybody, right?
Absolutely. You know, when I was getting photos together for this presentation, I was scrolling back through some of my Facebook albums, and there are some fun photos of you and I, Brad, from different events, Monterey, some back alley garage gatherings, you know, over the past 11 years of working together in various capacities. I chose to leave those out, but it certainly has been a fun ride, and I'm so excited to have you leading the America's Car Museum. I think the spirit, the personality, your passion for the car world is so in tune with everything that the museum is and everything that we envision with the trust. And I truly am so thrilled for you to be a part of the team.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I had the same thought as I'm going through 1,000 photos in my, Apple photo stream, and every one of them was some ridiculous indicator of the types of things that we like. You and I share a love of driving old cars and motorcycles. Not the motorcycle guy. You're the motorcycle person, but restorations, the camaraderie of going to car shows and rallies and tours. And it's really about the spirit of what, not just the car itself as an artifact, but it's about the people, the things that having an old car or an old car collection can do, right? It promotes all this great synergy among lots of different types of people, and young people, particularly, when we can help get them interested in this whole scene with us too. So anyway, it was really inspiring to go through your photos that you had put in and then create a little fun thing around it. So look, honestly, it's already 9:10. I've done enough of these things. We already know when we're late, and we're late. We got to get started. So let's get started on this thing. And what I call the first category is buy a car, drive a car, because you had a wonderful example of a car that you own that you immediately said, well, maybe I should just launch off on a big road trip with it. So Kelsey, if you'll go to the next slide, I believe we have Tabitha's 73 Mini that currently resides in her garage. Tabitha, why is this special to you?
Yeah, so this is a 1973 Mini 1275, which I spontaneously bought from a previous coworker out in San Diego, pretty much sight unseen. The only time I had looked at this car was a very brief event we did teaching kids to drive manual transmission with Haggerty, the driving experience. So we were using this car amongst many others to teach manual transmission driving. And I've loved minis for a decade plus. And I told Logan at the time, if you ever sell this, you got to let me know. And he called a couple months later and said, hey, I think I might sell it. So I said, well, let's do a deal, and bought it less than sight unseen, and flew out to San Diego, jumped in it and hit the road, and did a 3,000-mile tour through the back roads of through national parks into Colorado, and did a 1,200-mile driving tour called the Haggerty Silver Summit, which is put on by Classic Car Adventures, our friend Dave Hort up in Canada, who does a lot with the trust as well. He's the tour master of our annual drive home event. So it's all kind of intertwined, but I had no problem with this car. I had myself and a passenger in it the whole time, luggage for 2 weeks, basically, a nice cooler. And for as little as the minis are, it had plenty of room and plenty of go. And let me tell you, it is like a street legal go-kart. Corners on this thing are more fun than anything I've ever driven. It has 10-inch wheels, 10-inch. So potholes are more disastrous in this than most vehicles you'll drive, but so much fun. The only issue I had, I made it into Colorado, stopped by a fellow Mini enthusiast garage to show it off, and I washed the car right before I took it to him. Bugs are just plastered on this thing by this time, and it was a self-wash, and washed it off, and the windshield wiper came off. So there's a little nut that holds it on that cracked, basically. And so fortunately, I had all the pieces. And it just so happens that my father owns a machine shop in Colorado. So I got it home after that short jaunt, and he machined a new piece, and it was good to go. I haven't had a problem with it since.
That's not a real old car story, because no cars can have no problems since. That can't actually be true. That's really true. You've had no problems with it since then?
The only other thing, I lived the last year in Connecticut when I was overseeing the Greenwich Concours And of course, with COVID, we never actually got to have the event. But so I was out in Connecticut for a year and driving down the public road, and I just hear this clash and bang, and I thought the transmission had gone. Quickly discovered it was the exhaust that fell. So the bracket finally gave out after, you can only hit that thing so many times on an accidental pothole. But welded the bracket back on and it's good to go. In fact, if I could find the time, I would love to. It's in Allentown right now. I would love to road trip it from East Coast out west, but maybe next spring.
Maybe next spring we can convoy out in some cars from.
Well, Brad, you have one or two cars that need to come out. I think a road trip is in the future. I
think so. Okay, well, that's good. Well, we love the story of the Mini. And what's really fun about what everybody will see here is that these aren't just a story about a picture. This picture really illustrates a mentality and a love for a particular segment of the hobby, or, kind of a frame of mind about why we do certain things. So Tabitha, very good. Love the Mini. I'm proud to say I've had the chance to drive it. And I believe that you allowed me to do a nice little e-brake turn in it in a parking lot one time to see exactly if I could get it to turn within its own wheelbase. And
I remember that. I also think that it may have been you that encouraged me to see if I could, and I successfully did, park the Mini in between the pillars of the hotel entryway, that it fits so perfectly.
That may have been me also. I'm full of good ideas all the time. All right, Kelsey, let's go to the slide because I had a contribution to this segment. Now, right away, anyone watching is going, this guy runs a car museum, and I'm pretty sure that's a picture of a Saab 9000. This can't add up. But I will say that it does, because this illustrates very well the buy a car, drive a car mentality. Because yes, this is my rather decrepit 1994 Saab 9000 Aero 5-speed Swedish hot rod stealth cruiser. I love these things, just absolutely love these things. But I bought this at the end of last year and drove it almost immediately on the Amelia Islander Bust Rally. So we put 2,200 miles on it, driving straight down. And I'm going to say it went pretty well, right? Pretty well. It didn't break on that exact trip. But let me tell you, I love pre-war cars. I love cars from the 50s and 60s and 70s and so forth. But I'm 51 years old and I'm starting to really get into like 80s and early 90s stuff. I can't help it. It's a generational thing. Those were the cars that were kind of neat when I was, growing up and didn't have the chance to really buy all the ones that I really wanted to. So now all of a sudden, weird turbocharged things with lots of little buttons and lights are sort of intriguing to me. So I'm going back and I'm finding some of these old cars that I really liked that I didn't have before. And Saab 9000 Aero is a beast. I will maintain that this is more fun than it should be, because in third gear, this car will go from 40 miles an hour to 105 miles an hour on a professional closed course, of course, before you have to go up into fourth gear. It is an absolute riot. So, but this is a bit of a problem child. And I needled Tabitha about the fact that her car was so trouble-free, because the next big trip that this car had to go on was to go from Maryland to Tacoma, Washington, where I had got a friend of mine to drive it for me because I was busy and I was already out there. I'd flown out. He was going to present me my car. I was going to have a car to drive for the rest of the time I'm in Washington before I moved my family out. Well, right now the car is in Fargo, North Carolina, or Fargo, North Dakota, sorry. And
other side of the map.
Yeah, I was going to say wrong map. And it's got an electrical problem and it just died. So hopefully the shop where it is currently mired has it fixed. I'm supposed to be on an airplane on Saturday to go retrieve it and then continue the journey to Tacoma, Washington in it through Badlands National Park with my son and go through Yellowstone. And we have a big trip planned. Fingers crossed that the car is finished and I can actually drive it. But yeah, I love it. Big road trips are kind of our thing. I love that. And I don't like a lot of prep. I just like to get out there and just go do it. There's no better way to learn about a car than to just really settle in. All right. So we actually have a question. Joe, why don't you buy a Tesla or an Alfa Romeo? Those are some really rad cars you guys have an exhibit. Thank you very much. There are a lot of cars in the museum. And if I could have one of every one of those things, I would love to do that. I'm pretty sure Tabitha would say the absolute same thing. And for me, an Alfa is definitely on my list. Like, I would love a little, a Giulia Super. Those are my dream pocket sedans. Those are my favorites. So if the minute I can free up some cash to go buy a Giulia Super, and there is one on exhibit there that our guest curator Fred Russell had put together, I will have one. What say you, Tabitha? Where's your Tesla? Where's your Alfa?
I made the mistake several years back on a long road trip. It was going out to Colorado for holiday. So a modern car. So we had a lot of time to kill. I made the mistake of starting a dream list of cars. Let me tell you, the list got so long of the cars that I would just love to have. So a Tesla, an Alfa, many others are on that list. Garage space is a little bit of an issue. And then, just the time to enjoy and drive them. If I'm going to own something, I really want to drive it. So got to give love to all of the cars, maybe someday. The other concern with a Tesla, I've driven a couple, and I find that when I drive the Tesla and then jump back in an analog car, whoa, it just throws you for a loop. The automatic braking of a Tesla and all of the cleanliness of it takes me into a whole different mindset. So I gotta be sure that I'm in that right place when I'm driving a Tesla.
All right. One thing we have to do, and we have several people from the museum, obviously, that are either volunteers or other folks that actually work there, like me. And we all know we have the 13th built Tesla Roadster, which actually I guess is a prototype car, down in our learning lab. So that one, I think, is on my list of, we got to get that thing running so we can take it out and about and do some really fun stuff with it. So I love it. We can have some Tesla themed stuff going on at the museum that's out, that we can take out into the world. And I think it'd be really fun. All right, now we're like completely late on all of this. We're just rolling right through. All right, so how about this? Kelsey, why don't you go to the next slide? And Tabitha sent this in because one of her great inspirations and memories has to do with where she went to college. Some very formative years for her in her personal life and her career. And Tabitha, take it away, because it's a really cool photo.
Thanks. So this is a really important photo to me. And there's one of these that happens every year at Monterey, Pebble Beach Concours, and it is gathering of McPherson College automotive restoration graduates, current students, and advisory board members. So you might recognize a few faces in there. There's McKeel Haggerty, Paul Russell, Scott George from the Revs Institute, many people who are all about the future of automotive and restoration. Again, that mindset of the RPM Foundation, being sure that there are skilled crafts women and men in the field. And I graduated from the automotive restoration program with, so I don't have grease under my nails right now, but I often do. And they've been keeping me behind the desk too much now. And that garage space lately has been empty. But this is really a powerful photo and experience. We all gather at a particular car on the lawn, and it might be a car that one of the graduates or current students who's interning in a shop had a hand in restoring. And to see this group grow year by year is so cool. And to know that there is a future generation, and to know that we all, through the trust and the museum and RPM Foundation, have a hand in that. I personally was a grant recipient for RPM Foundation when I was in college, when I interned at the Glenmore Gathering Concours in Ohio. And that was a whole path to where I'm at now. So with Monterey coming up in just a few weeks from now. We're all eager to get back together. But I thought that this was just a fun picture. We always ask, what's the future of the car world? Is it in good hands? Are there young people that will love the cars? Let me tell you, there is. I don't think we have anything to truly worry about. I think that the younger generation enjoys different cars and they participate in different ways than a lot of our collectors of today that you would find at Concours events. But car culture is alive and strong. And that's, Brad, we have a couple of other questions here that relate to what's happening in the museum post-COVID, Celine's and Alphas. And then from Daniel Stahl, also, are we planning to create a driving experience? And I think that this goes hand in hand with the relevancy of this photo too, and attracting also a younger demographic and being sure that our exhibits in the museum are relevant to that group. We've previously done a Radwood event at LeMay. We did an RWB build, and we're looking at some really fun ideas of other exhibits. And Brad, you can speak more to it as well, but to really be sure that we're tuned into all segments of car culture.
Yeah, there's a lot of plans for things to be happening. And, Scott Keller, who is also on the call, directs all our exhibitry. There's plans for all kinds of neat stuff to come through. I don't know if you saw the Ferrari exhibit that we just had through. We had probably 8 or 9 of the most unbelievable Ferraris from the 50s to the present day in a beautiful circle in the front there. We do have the Celine exhibit that's been there a bit. The Alfa Romeo exhibit is brand new. I don't want to speak too much about some incredible things happening, but you will know that in December, we will have a new exhibit about a very famous designer in General Motors history, which is going to be very exciting to have put together. And we're also planning a very special lobby display from some things across the vast ocean. So there's a long list of things that are looking at being refreshed in the museum. And the idea is when people come in for the first time, they're absolutely blown away. And when they come in that second, third, and fourth time, they have the same experience. They may see some cars that they've seen before. Perhaps they're displayed in a different way. Perhaps they get to look at some things with a different sort of thread of history through them. But then there are also a lot of other experiences that they can have. So it's always something to do, and really good work to try and pull it off. And then Daniel for the driving experiences. So Daniel knows very well, because Daniel's a friend of all of ours, and we're looking on lots of experiences. There is the drive forward that's happening that Tabitha is dealing with. We just did a phenomenal driving day. I got to take the museum's 1957 Bel Air Nomad on an incredible drive around some great mountain roads with some folks from our Club Auto group. And we had probably 20 cars out that day. And let me tell you, having the museum Tacoma as the hub of all rallies and tours in the Pacific Northwest, and connecting us to fantastic places, museums, and just great driving roads, I am all about it. So we're going to be putting some really killer maps together with some of our partners, and we're going to give people a lot of really fun things to do with their cars. So to me, that means that it drives people to come see us at the museum, and it also allows us to spread our message far and wide on not just the museum, but also at the trust level. So it's going to be a lot of fun to take that message out to the world. Let's see. Now we're really late. All right. So how about this? Did I get to mine? Oh, no. So Tabitha gets to glow about her college experience at McPherson and how she got to learn the art of auto restoration and all these phenomenal things. My college career was remarkably undistinguished, I will admit. It was not a source of pride for my parents, but let me tell you where I got my car stuff from. Next slide, Kelsey. There it is. So I've probably had 30 or 40 old cars from my high school age to today. And by and large, the way I learned about each one of them was by taking it apart and then hopefully figuring out how to put it all back together. This is one of my early projects. This was back when my wife and I lived in Colorado. This is probably in probably the late 90s, I guess. And that was my, I had a Mark I Sunbeam Tiger, and it was great. But this was back in the day. This was a car that was from Oklahoma. It was original paint. It was original interior, all that stuff. But it was just dead. It was, burnt to a crisp from a lifetime in the Oklahoma sun. And I took it all apart and figured out how to put it all back together again. And we had the really active Sunbeam Club in Colorado, and had a lot of help from people coming to the garage or me going over there and learning how to do upholstery and learning how to take the engine in and out and all this sort of stuff. So one of my favorite things also with a car project is I like to get it to a point where it's pretty disassembled, but I can still drive it around and I can sort of be an annoyance to my neighbors. So this one was still functional, but it didn't have, I think this right before I took the hood off it, but I really enjoyed driving it around in this sort of barely held together bungee cord setup for a while. So we're going to keep moving fast. Let's see. All right. So our next category here is something that Tabitha and I both hold dear together. And it's actually an experience that we have shared many times. And it goes along with long distance driving, but this is long distance rallying. So let's go to the next slide. And we're talking about Great Race. Go ahead, lay it out, Tabitha. What's Great Race all about?
So Great Race is a time, speed, distance rally, and it is the most frustrating, challenging, exhausting car event that you will immediately want to turn around and do again at the end. It is so much fun and such a cool experience. So it's about 2,500 miles from point A to point B, whatever the start and end location would be. The year that I did it in this 1964 and a half Mustang was from Portland, Maine to Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, in June, you would rather it be the hot to the cool versus getting hotter as you go along. But it is such an incredible event presented by Hemmings Motor News and Haggerty, put on by the Coker Group, really. But it really is such a fun crew. And Dan Stahl, Brad did it this year, many years over. And it's partly about the enjoyment of the vehicle, but also more about the people. So it's testing your skills. And let's say that there definitely has to be some good chemistry between driver and navigator, because we have seen many teams that no longer return, or husband-wife teams that say, okay, we're going separate ways tonight. So chemistry in the car is important, but it's challenging and it's really fun. You really don't get to enjoy the scenery of the locations that you're passing through because you're so busy looking at your directional chart, and you have to do maneuvers and you have to base it on time charts. So there's a lot of math involved and a lot of quick actions, and heaven forbid that you get stuck behind that farm implement that won't let you hold your 35-mile-an-hour time speed for the 30 seconds that you have to go. So then you have to make up the time. But it's really quite enjoyable. And this year I am so proud. The RPM Foundation has been noted as one of the receiving beneficiaries of the Great Race, specifically for the X Cup team, which is the student-based teams. So the students are the navigators, along with a mentor who is the driver, of course, liability reasons. And so RPM Foundation is helping provide those grants and the scholarships to the winning teams. And it's just so cool to see these kids involved and become part of the family. Brad, I know you experience this too. I can't go anywhere in the country where within 1, 2, maybe 3 phone calls, I have a Great Race family member within a drivable radius that if I have a broken down car, they're there to help.
Hey, well, the other day on Facebook, right, when I found out that my buddy had broken the Saab somewhere in Fargo, it took one Facebook post to pop up with a friend from Great Race. Hey, don't you remember? Chris lives in Fargo. It's like, of course he does. So you're exactly right. It's fantastic. You're part of a family, and there are a lot of car events that are this way, where you do it once, you sort of get this this feeling that you're part of this. You're something bigger than just the drive, right? You all want each other to succeed and grow together and learn, and that's absolutely what Great Race does. You've described it very, very accurately.
So Brad, we've got to turn the table over to your experience in the 1916 Hudson. And we have a question from Dan of what was your biggest issue with the Hudson among the many other issues, but what was the biggest one, whether this year or previous?
Well, I've always had trouble with the navigator. I mean, he's completely incompetent and hasn't just never really pulled it together. He's always been the reason why we can't get any better than 16th place. That's the whole thing. I kid because
for those of you who don't know, Daniel Stahl, who is one of our attendees, happens to be Brad's navigator.
All right, so hit the next picture there, Kelsey. So, yeah, behind me somewhere there. So I'm the driver of this car, and it is owned by the Stahl Automotive Museum out of Chesterfield, Michigan. And these have been dear friends, and Dan's a really good friend, and he's the navigator, and I'm the driver for this team car. We've done this for several years now in various vehicles, but we've really settled into the 16 Hudson, and it's fun. And this has been something that has taught me about the glory of true open cars, because even this year, so we went from San Antonio, Texas, up through Oklahoma and West Virginia and back down to Greenville, South Carolina. Well, we hit Oklahoma and it was an absolute monsoon and a hailstorm. I mean, and you're just out in it. You're like, okay, you don't stop. There's no time delays. You just keep going. So I'm trying to look through the windshield through this little tiny postage stamp that I think I can keep clear because it's deflecting everything around one. I don't know how it works, but anyway, there's one little tiny place that I can see out of. Dan's cowering under the other side of the cowl with his instructions under a plastic sheet, yelling at me to maintain 42 miles an hour for the next 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And we do that, and you just keep going. It's absolutely horrific. But then there are days when the weather's beautiful and you're up on top of a mountain somewhere, and it's absolutely amazing. So, biggest issue with the 16 Hudson's kind of a gag for us, because we've blown the oil cooler line in the middle of the Mojave Desert. We had a wheel blow today and had to change a tire right at a start. Like we were getting ready to take off and it blows and the rim comes off like it had a welded bead and it just exploded. So that was a bit of a problem. But overall, it's a great car and we've had a lot of fun with it. So we love Great Race. It's a family, and I've been doing it, I guess, since 2010 or so in various cars. And I've driven some. I've mostly driven. I've navigated once. Navigating is not my thing. There's a lot of math happening in the navigator seat. I'd rather watch that Speedo and drive and zoop around. What about you, Tabitha? Are you a driver or a navigator? You're a driver, right?
Oh, I'm a driver all the way, for sure. I could navigate if I had to, but driving is where it's at for me. And Great Race or otherwise, if somebody wants to go for a road trip and they're insisting on driving, I said, well, get your own car. I'm driving.
Well, and it bears a good discussion. And we've talked about this before when people say, well, what's the difference between a tour and a rally? Right? Mm-hmm. So you're on a tour. To me, that means you're in a car, you may have route instructions and you may have a navigator or you may not. But the idea is that you're just simply following a map or some instructions, and you get somewhere when you get there. There's a nice lunch or a tour at a museum or a whatever. But a true rally like this is cryptic directions, intensely monitored speed control, and a navigator on a stopwatch yelling at you all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Our club auto tours are more the leisurely enjoyment. You might have a stop off at lunch and you can take an hour and a half, depart when you want. Sometimes they end up at a winery and you have an overnight stop, just, the enjoyment of the drive. The rally is the enjoyment of your test of skills. And you know, whether it's the Great Race or the Mille Miglia, we have a 1927 LaSalle at LeMay Museum that competed in the Mille Miglia several years ago with Keith Flickinger and David Madeira. And that is just in the same mindset. It's testing the ability of the car, the driver, and your navigator. And all three of those components have to be working at 100% for you to really win. And at no point are any one of those three things ever working at 100%. So you have to give and take, and you have to compensate for whichever one is lagging behind that day.
All right. So we love Great Race, right? We're going to go. This is fun. This is a fun topic here because I love asking people, what was your first car? Where did the hobby begin for you? So in Tabitha's world, Tabitha and Kelsey, you can go to the next thing now. Tabitha, where did it all start for you? It looks like that's not a Mini. What is that? That's a Maxi. There's something going on. There's something big going on there.
I'm pretty sure that flywheel and the housing weighs more than my Mini by a long shot. So it all started for me with a rusty old tractor. In high school, I participated in a tractor restoration contest put on by Chevron Dello. My first tractor was a 1935 John Deere Model B. The one I'm working on here was the second one I did, which is a 1928 John Deere Model D. So old, big, heavy, fun. The mechanicals of it are the most basic part of engine operation, right? Combustion engine and transmissions and gear ratios. And so it was really a great way for me to learn the mechanical aspects long before I even started working on cars, which are a little bit more complex than a tractor, at least of that vintage. But it all started here. I did this as kind of a thing that my brother and sister had competed as well. So of course, baby sister has to follow along and do it too. And I ended up winning with my 35B, the national championship. I was the first female to win. And that really just launched everything for me. I did a campaign with Chevron. I went to San Antonio. I met Mario Andretti. Actually, I should have put that photo in here. My 1935 John Deere is signed by Mario Andretti. Not many people can say that. And it's really funny. It comes full circle because Mario, of course, in the car world, and he is located just outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania, and is intertwined with the Nicola Bulgari Center for American Automotive Heritage, which we work with closely through the trust. And so it comes full circle. But I'll tell you, Brad, very quickly, the best piece of advice that Mario gave me when I was in San Antonio, Texas, with my John Deere tractor on the grand ballroom of the Marriott Hotel at the Riverwalk. I was 14, 15 years old. I had no idea what was going on and what a cool thing that was. But Mario told me, meet as many people as you can, experience as much, and visit as many places as you can, because the more you do, the better you understand the world we live in and can connect with the people around you. And I think that that's what drives me in the car world so much, to do these events, to go drive any car that I can, to see whatever I can. Because it's so true. You meet the coolest people, and the stories and the experiences are unparalleled.
That's great. And what an amazingly authentic way to get started. I think that's absolutely awesome. And Kelsey, I think we have one more photo of Tabitha and the tractor. So which tractor is this? This is the one that you had in the ballroom? Is that which one this is?
It is. Yeah, this is the 35 John Deere Model B. This photo is actually used as an advertisement for Chevron many years back. But you know, it's something that I think about often with what we do with the trust and all of our organizations, because the tractor contest was really a marketing thing for Chevron to put on, right? It's something cool. It's promoting their lubricant products, but it was life-changing for me. And I think that we all know those moments that we can have that impact on others too. So whether it's take a spin or the drive-in movies and bring your kids in the cool classic car and sit out and have family memories, it can be life-changing.
That's really great. Really, really awesome. So so do you have a tractor to bring out to Washington State when you're, leave it at the museum with us so we can display it?
I have stuff everywhere, Brad. This tractor is still in Traverse City, Michigan. I have a tractor in Colorado, and at some point they'll all migrate to one location. Who knows? But hey, if you and Scott ever want to do a tractor display at the museum.
You know what I like? I like those orchard tractors, the ones that have the big fenders and stuff on them. I think those are really old Minneapolis Molines. I think those are pretty cool.
You got it. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many crossovers between tractors and cars, Lamborghini. There's Fiat, Case built vehicles before they built tractors. There are many. So we could do a fun exhibit.
I think we watched some Porsche tractors running around Laguna Seca a couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
That was a parade. All right. Well, look, next slide, Kelsey. And where a lot of this started for me, this is me, Brad, in an old scanned Polaroid in my dad's 67 Corvette Roadster that he bought. I was maybe in 10th grade or something. And this was the replacement for a car that he had given up when I came along after he came back from Vietnam. So I always felt bad that I was probably the reason my dad had to get rid of his Corvette, but it's kind of a typical thing, right? I had a really killer BMW that I sold and got a Honda Civic when my son was there. So it's one of these things that sort of follows down the line. But to me, with this car, he still has this car to this day, but now it's all NCRS to the end. It's got every correct little bit of, wing nut on it and whatever. But this is how the car came into the family. And I think it's so important. And it showed me there's nothing like just a car that you buy it. And then when you first sort of simmer in with it and you really start to learn about what's right about it and what may be wrong about it. And do you want to customize it or do you want to make it exactly how it came off the factory line? This is really the first time I had access to a car where I could kind of think through that stuff. So Dad's Vet, it's got wire wheels on it. So that wasn't exactly a factory option for Corvettes, but somewhere along the way, it got a snazzy set of J.C. Whitney wire wheels. And it already had the wrong motor put in it. It's got a 69 replacement block. So this has not been one of those, numbers matching cars. And it had its stock side exhaust, rear exit exhaust. So a lot of discussions were made about this car over the years that I was a part of as we took it apart and put it back together again and took it apart. Put it back together again, summer after summer after summer. So now it's got side pipes because back in the 80s, well, you've got a Corvette, so you must put side pipes on it. Now, of course, everybody's like, why did I do that? Why did I leave it alone? And it got a tri-power set up, but he found the correct date-coded deal back when you could do that much more affordably than you can now, and lots of other stuff. But playing around with Dad and this Corvette before I could even drive was really one of the things that started to instill in me that old cars are a really neat thing. And you can be hands-on. This is not something that you're not supposed to touch and worry about scratching. You're supposed to disassemble it every time you hear a rattle or want to improve it or make it look like something in a magazine or maybe what you think it was born like, whatever. I just love it. It was one of the things that is instilled in me. And I get to visit the car when I visit my dad in Birmingham, Alabama. And every time I drive it, I am instantly that 15-year-old kid again. And it's just awesome. So it's really fun to have that memory that goes all the way back to the beginning of before I started. It's so fun to have that still in the family. And then the next slide, we can go quickly because we're really moving through this. But the first car I ever bought as a project car, like I had a couple of old Mustangs in high school and really loved them, but they were my transportation. Like it wasn't like a fun car. It was the car that had to get me wherever I was going, no matter the weather. But this was in about, I don't know, 1996, something like that. And I was living in Delaware at the time. And that's a 68 Porsche 911T that I bought out of a newspaper ad for $7,000. and I had to finance it, which my parents were like, that's smart. So you're going to finance an old car, are you? So, but that car, I owned it for 10 years. I took it completely apart like everything else. I put it completely back together. By the time I was done with it, it was silver with a red interior. It had the right wheels on it. The motor had been all apart, put back in. And I learned every little nut and bolt on how to fool around with old cars, European cars anyway, from owning this thing. And I'm just so happy with the experience of it. And one of the things that I really want people to understand too is it doesn't matter what a car costs. Like, you can get excited about a Duesenberg. You can get excited about a rusty rubber bumper MGB. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever floats your boat, whatever your level of either income or mechanical wherewithal will support you to do, just go do it. Buy something that means something to you, and don't let anybody tell you that it's not important or worth doing anything with. So again, my Saab is worth, the repairs in Fargo are probably going to outweigh what I paid for that car. And it doesn't matter to me because it's fun and I enjoy it. So anyway, all right. So I'll answer a question. We had an anonymous attendee, Tabitha. Anonymous, he says, so wait, did that one drop off? Where'd we go?
Nope. Asking about the painting in my background, or commenting about it, and asking if we have custom and hot rod cars and motorcycles at the museum as well. So very quickly, the picture behind me is a David Ewell painting. If you're not familiar with him, phenomenal artist, mostly of motorcycles and Western culture, and a little bit of cars as well. But this is Daytona Duel. So really great combination of the cars and the motorcycle world. But, Brad, I know we have a handful of motorcycles in the museum right now. I happen to be a two-wheel enthusiast fanatic as well. And so we might have to talk about getting a larger motorcycle exhibit in there as well, especially once Brown Maloney's exhibit of Hondas is moved. I forget how long that exhibit runs, but I know we're coming up on it transitioning out.
Yeah, Scott, our exhibitry director, is on the Zoom. Scott and I were talking just today. We're going to put one of those big like wheels of death things, and we're going to have vintage dirt bikes running in circles in it for all day during open hours.
Excellent. So a question from Joe Kunzler just now about the Honda exhibit. Brad, I don't know if you want to chime in a little bit more, but the highlight of it is one of our great supporters and a master collector of the museum, Brown Maloney, has, probably at least 15 Hondas exhibited in the lobby of LeMay America's Car Museum. All varieties, all years, makes, models, pretty impressive.
Yeah, and there's a great club, a local motorcycle club that has some really interesting stuff down on one of the lower levels. So I think we've got a scattering of motorcycles throughout the place.
We do, but I'm thinking we need some like 1914, 1915 Harleys, Indians. It is the 100th anniversary of Indian this year. No, excuse me, 120th. It's 100 of Moto Guzzi, another great brand.
All right. Well, you've all heard it. The CEO wants a bunch of motorcycles, so back up the truck. Here come the motorcycles.
Hey, they take up less room.
That's right. I agree. And what's fun with this too is we talk all the time about, wouldn't it be great to do a display of X or X? And given enough time, you can do it all. It's going to be great. You just got to figure out what are the best examples of that particular thread. How do we tell the best story about it? What do they illustrate as a point in history and fellowship in the hobby? And you just rock and roll with it. So I would imagine we could do something fun with motorcycles. No doubt about it. Excellent. Let's see. All right. So go to the next one, because on the theme of motorcycles, you have talked a little bit about them, and this is you, right, Tabitha? Which one is this?
This is me. I'll very quickly go through it. So my love of motorcycles has been there for many years, but I am a new rider. I finally have the the support and encouragement and the right training to do it now. So last year I bought my first motorcycle in 1974 BMW R60/6. This is a 75, but pretty much the same model as mine. And I just love it. You know, there's a big difference. And Brad, you probably experienced this from the open car of the 1916 Hudson as well. But there's a different experience about the wind and the smells and everything that you really experience on a motorcycle without a windshield. So it takes that experience of the road to a whole new level. And I'm just loving it.
Yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. I worry I missed my window on getting out there and playing around with motorcycles. And my wife has been remarkably compliant about all my four-wheel stuff. She's been pretty clear that she doesn't want me going out and learning that new trick at this particular moment. So I'm going to let you have motorcycles. You know what I would love if you get something with a sidecar, because I think with a pair of goggles and a scarf and out on a windy road, I could easily be sidecar guy. I think
we can do that. You know, I learned to drive a foot clutch hand shift 1930s Harley Davidson VL with a sidecar, which makes a whole lot more sense of the shifting and the clutch manipulation than the hand throttle, the hand levers. So I'm gonna see you in a sidecar with me driving a foot clutch hand shift motorcycle here soon.
I look forward to the death-defying day. It's going to be great. All right, so this was our something new category, and I think, Kelsey, if you go to the next slide, my something new is the fact that I don't own this car anymore. So Tabitha knows this car. This was my 1917 Willys Overland Model 90B Touring. And I've had this car for a long time. And in a weak moment, I just sold it to a very nice person in the Willys Overland Club in England. So it has left me. And I do not currently own a pre-war car. And I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. And when you talk about, you know, strange clutches and figuring stuff out, right? Different than normal, you know, retarding the spark and hand throttles and the gas pedals in the middle, and you've got a leather cone clutch, all this stuff, all these little fun idiosyncratic starting procedures and knowing what to do if it's cold or if it's hot and how many friends you can put in it without the whole thing creaking to a grinding halt in the middle of the road, all that sort of stuff. I miss it. So this is my my confession that I need to get something else like this, and I'm embarrassed that I don't have something super cool. So every time I'm wandering around the museum and I see something truly vintage, I'm eyeballing it. And I have another, oh my God, I have another confession. I've never driven a Model T. I've never driven a Model T Ford. And we do take a spin days at the museum, and we have a wonderful Model T, if not a handful of them, that we can use on these things. And Renee, who runs our collections, has promised to teach me how to drive a Model T. And I'm very, very excited about it. So,
well, I think we have our live feed for Facebook when you're back in Tacoma next week, Brad.
How about it? That will be fun. We can do it live.
Yes, I like that idea.
All right, it's good. All right, so we're supposed to take this thing up to about 10 o'clock, and my time, Eastern time. We do these for about an hour, and we really are coming up on our hour. And we had a few other things. Why don't we just hit one more thing, and we'll just do it in order since that's the way it's coming. But I hope everyone's getting a general sense that Tabitha and I feel like we are honored to be in these positions with the trust and with the museum. And I feel like it's the culmination of a long career of doing lots of other interesting car-oriented things that has brought us to this fantastic place. And we're both so appreciative of it. Want to share all our memories with everybody and create new ones. So how about it? Kelsey, here's the slide. So this was what we called the blank check card. It's fun to end on this. Money aside, what's in your garage, Tabitha?
Well, so I'll spin this just slightly and I'll say what does success look like? For me personally, success looks like when I have this 1932 Packard twin six coupe roadster, ex Clark Gable owned car in my garage, and then quickly going down the road. This car is perfect for me. I love pre-war American. The ingenuity of Packard, the craftsmanship, the details, the beauty, it is all in this car. And the best thing about it, when I first saw this car back in 2008, Tom Moretti, great Packard collector in Illinois, owned this car and he restored it himself in his garage. It is a Pebble Beach class winner. And it's just that whole package of the passion and the ability of figuring it out and doing it yourself. And I think that for me, what does success look like for the trust and all of our entities? It kind of relates to this car, the idea of it. It's everything coming together and working together to create something so beautiful and well built and well powered that it pulls in all of the elements. So whether it's the museums working together to be sure that we're promoting each other and the events that we're doing, and RPM being sure that we have interns placed at the different shops, and it all intertwines, right? So I think success for me personally looks like having this car in my collection and being the caretaker of it someday. And hopefully that goes in perfect alignment with the success of the trust and the collaboration of all things car culture.
That's really great, Tabitha. And I got to say, we're gonna end on that, because the spirit of all of this, you're right, it's completely evoked in these thoughts. And I want to thank everyone for all your questions. I think if this is still on the Facebook feed, that we can go in and we'll try and answer some of the other questions there. There were a couple of other ones that popped in. Patrick, I saw you out there. Good to see you on a live stream. And we've had a great time. And really the point of this was just an informal chat, so we could all get to know each other a little bit. And this has been really, really fun. So we're going to do a lot of these. We're going to have a lot of fun doing content, either live or in a video format out of the museum. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is sharing the message of the museum with the world and the trust with the world. So look out, we're going to do a lot of really, really fun stuff. So I'll say thank you all. And Kelsey, do you have a final message for everyone there?
I just wanted to say thank you both so much for joining us, and to everyone who came tonight too. It was really fun to learn a lot more about both of you and kind of what led you, all the circumstances that led you to this point in time right now. So I'm really look forward to working with both of you, and we'll see you in Tacoma very, very soon.
Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully behind the wheel of a Saab 9000 in a few days, but we'll see.
And then a Model T. So be sure to keep an eye on the Facebook page. If you don't follow it yet, be sure to follow it. Brad is gearing up to do a lot of fun videos. He doesn't even know it yet, but we have something in mind for him.
Well, if I could get out of all these meetings I'm stuck in all day, I'd get back to driving stuff. You told me there were so many meetings with running a car museum. You tricked me. All right. Well, I'm out. Take care.
Yes. Thank you all both so much. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you again and have a wonderful evening.
See ya.
Okay, bye-bye.